Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Los Angeles World Affairs Council and Town Hall's inaugural live stream. My name is Kyle Langan, and I am the Marketing and Communications Manager at LAWACTH. Despite our having to postpone our traditional in-person events due to the coronavirus pandemic, we are very pleased to keep Angelenos and the nation updated on the timeliest international and domestic topics in the form of digital programming with upcoming live streams like this one. We are going to be talking to global subject experts, just like we do in our traditional events, that you can access from the comfort of wherever you may be watching or listening. Make sure to check out on our website for all of our upcoming live streams, including next Wednesday at 11 a.m. when we'll be talking to Christine Peterson, Director of Trade and Investment for the City of LA, in partnership with the World Trade Center of Los Angeles. Today, I am thrilled to introduce Tracy Williams, founder and CEO of Olmstead Williams Communications. Not only is Tracy an expert in managing crisis communications and PR on a global scale, but she's also the co-chair of the Los Angeles World Affairs Council and Town Hall's Board of Directors. We're going to be talking about how companies are managing their communications during COVID-19 and some of the takeaways about what businesses can do to alleviate worry and keep their customers engaged. For those of you joining us for this webinar, Tracy will be taking questions during the Q&A in about 15 minutes. So if you're joining us from your computer, you should see a control panel on your right-hand side, and there is an area that says talking, then questions, with an area below that to type in your questions. So you can submit your questions there, and they will be sent to Jessica, our VP of Events, and she will be reading them aloud during the Q&A. So we're going to try and get to as many of your questions as we can, and if several people have similar questions, Jessica will combine them so that we can answer everybody's concerns. If you're calling into this webinar, unfortunately, you won't be able to ask questions. We can only take questions from our online participants at this time. Okay, so Tracy, let's dive right in. Thank you so much for being on with us.
Hey, I'm honored to be a guinea pig. And really proud of you and the LA World Affairs Council, Town Hall, for taking this step. I mean, this is what we all need to be doing. You're a great example. The organization is a great example of forward thinking and, you know, resolving issues and challenges. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks. So let's jump right in. Besides remaining calm, since a pandemic is not an everyday occurrence, what are the top 2 to 3 tips or actions that institutions, small businesses, nonprofits can take to communicate with their stakeholders? I know that you abide by 3 signature tenets or tenets. Can you explain more about them?
Well, I just think that when a crisis hits, sometimes our instincts aren't the best instincts. So I just like to remind people there's really 3 things that you just need to be thinking about to be authentic and real and say things that are going to be important to people. Probably the most important thing is that you need to break your own bad news before somebody else does. Don't be the one to wait to say that you have a COVID-19 tested positive employee. If that comes to you from the news media, it sounds like you were hiding it when perhaps you never were, you just hadn't gotten around to it. So be ready to be responsive and break the bad news first, whatever that is. And you don't want to downplay the scenario. I mean, a lot of people, you have an instinct to kind of say, it's not going to be that bad, we're doing this. If you actually exert almost over concern, the response from another individual will be like, well, they're the ones who are going to say, oh, no, it's okay. It sounds like you're doing everything you can. But if you are downplaying it, it makes everybody feel uncomfortable that they're not getting the straight answer from you. It's interesting. I know a teenage girl, and she was posting on Facebook. This is family friend, and she said she was very upset because all these adults kept saying, hey, great, you're out of school and you don't have to worry about anything. It's like summer starting early. And so they're downplaying her anxiety over coronavirus and downplaying the way she feels about she really wants to be in school and she wants to be with friends, and this is miserable for her. Yeah. So you have an adult say, oh, at least you don't have coronavirus. Don't downplay people's feelings, accept them. And then the third thing, and probably the most important thing, is to over-communicate. Engage with people, keep them abreast of situations. I think a lot of companies are doing that very well. I'm sure all of you, like me, our inboxes are filled every day with another coronavirus, announcement.
Right.
Today, it was hairdressers. I mean, now we know this stuff is real when your hairdresser has to cancel all the appointments. I mean, it's
I know.
not fun. I worry about, we worry about all of those small business, but they're communicating right away. They're letting you know what's going on. And these people are really hurting. So it's powerful when they have great communications going about how they're apologizing to you for not being, available to provide services. And so my immediate thought, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people, is, oh God, what are we going to do to help these poor businesses stay abreast? They're having to shut down. So those are the things. Break your own bad news, don't downplay, and over communicate.
I love that. And you have a ton of experience in the crisis communication, field. So what would you say are the qualities of an effective crisis communication message, and how does that change for the different audiences that a business is trying to communicate to, right? So consumer versus investor in your business.
Well, we kind of talked about consumers with all of the emails about these businesses and whether they will be open or whatever. And I think they're doing a really good job. But what you really want to do, just like they're doing, of putting their customers in line and worrying about them, we need to do that, times 10 when it comes to our employees. And I would say that's our most important customer. And so we need to over communicate with our employees. Don't downplay the situation for them. We don't want to get desperate, but we have to have a communication. We know what their fears are. What are employees afraid of? What are their benefits? What is their leave policy? What's going to happen to their job? And be ready with communications, and there's no I don't know. We're going to figure this out together. So when it comes to investors, that's a Wall Street question. Right now companies are, just trying to manage the gyrations in the market. But then, I was just reading today that one of the food packaging companies, its stock is up 100%. 100%. This is a company that was getting ready to go out of business. And so there's some people, speculators, that say, oh, they did something bad. Well, probably they're really feeling a need right now. It's easier to go home order a box meal than to go to the grocery store. So put yourself in other people's shoes, just like our mothers told. Think what are their worries, what are their concerns, and address them.
Yeah,
thoughtfully and honestly.
right.
And be about it. Be concerned. People have a lot of problems right now and they're struggling. And there's a lot of, people with anxiety and depression. There's a lot of people like that in the workforce. So you're dealing with a workforce, specifically some of the younger people in the workforce, where they need a little bit of extra attention. So it's important that we give it to them and we let them say the things they need to say, that we have an open forum, open dialogue.
Yeah. Given your expertise, what have you observed? Because this live stream is entitled "Wonders and Blunders of Communication." So, what do you think has been the biggest blunder of this COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I'd say a lot of the blunders were a week and a half ago. It's just very, very impressive how many businesses have now learned from each other. But I mean, 2 weeks ago, we had one of our executives at a conference of a small group of people, still under 100, in Boston, and they checked into a hotel. This person checked into a hotel. The hotel didn't tell them that had been a group before and that there was exposure to coronavirus. So she checks in. She's the mother of a 5-year-old. She's starting the conferences, and then 2 days later, they said, "Oh, by the way, this happened." She's supposed to be there for 2 more days. And subsequent to that, we immediately got her on a flight home, just in case they would quarantine her there. Subsequently, that hotel shut down, and there's still very little information. It was just 2 days ago that we learned how many COVID-19 positives there were from the conference, and then worse yet, there were a number that were from employees at the hotel. So that was done wrong. And it's interesting, that hotel chain is basically shutting down its operations everywhere. And so, and they were, you know, what about terrible instructions? As she was checking out, she was saying, by the way, for the next 2 nights that I've paid for, do I get it? And do you understand why? And the guy's like, yes, 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 everything's fine, because he didn't want anybody behind her hearing what was going on. So they were still allowing people to check in under these circumstances. So that's the thing you don't want to do, right? That's just one example, but there were lots of examples of people kind of hiding and not wanting to do anything. And I think, I know there's still some bad actors out there, but I feel like the world has turned and people have gotten religion and they understand the significance, importance of this.
Yeah, because
People anymore.
I mean, they think it's bad PR to come out and admit it, but it's worse if it's found out about through somebody else, like you were saying.
It's 100 times worse, because if they came out and dealt with and were communicating with our executive and returning the calls or returning emails, she would have said, great. But what happened is day by day, she got angry and angry. And of course, that was communicated to everybody at that conference. And it was infuriating to her family. I mean, it stretches out. So, you know, they did it poorly. You can accept somebody having this happen if they talk to you.
Right. And as far as frequency on communication from an organization, is there kind of like a one size fits all, like how many times you should be messaging, or is it just when you have something to say?
It's pretty much you have a state of this is what we're doing, and then we think we're going to be perhaps opening at this period of time, then letting them know when that date is going to be pushed out. As you make changes, every time there's a piece of news, to your point, Kyle, you should be communicating it. So if the hairdressing salon says they think going to be open in 2 weeks, I saw that. I was like, nah, it's probably not going to happen, but okay. And probably next week, I would expect to have some communication about that. But I think that I really like what the grocery stores are doing. They're really out there on the front line saying, just do your weekly shopping. Don't hoard. Just get what you need for the week. We have a supply chain. Things are going to be okay. Please, you know, be respectful. So I hear a lot of good messaging coming from the consumer goods sector and from a lot of these a lot of the restaurants too who are offering takeout.
Yeah.
So anybody can give some calm and give something for free to help out during this time. I've been very impressed with the you know, the internet service providers. They're offering free services to people even if they can't pay their bill. And there's just a lot of companies that can offer services that really don't cost them much and can mean the world of difference to a family who, you know, where parents are getting laid off and kids are out of school and they need some help.
Yeah. So as far as nailing the messaging, you know, CPG companies, is there anyone else that you can think of, or
Yeah.
I think that there.
Yeah, the CPG, I think, you know, some of the tech companies have been pretty helpful. They're really on the front line trying to take care of things, and they're over communicating. So to your point, as much communications as you want to give, people will either ignore it or they will appreciate it. We have a client where we are pretty much tweeting twice a day and then responding on Twitter immediately.
Right.
So that's, you know, we try to do twice a day. If it needs to be 4 times a day, let's do that. So it all has to do with news. If we have something to say, or if the CEO is concerned about something, we're going straight to social media.
Right. And I think that there was another point that you were trying to say about influencers or celebrities who are kind of their messaging.
Well, I think one of the best things that's happened, we were talking about this the other day because we all loved what Arnold Schwarzenegger, our former governor, did. You know, he's in-house with his little donkey and his little pony, and he does a huge routine. Yesterday, you saw the internet light up with concerts at home with everybody from Coldplay to, I mean, I can't even think of it. There were so many wonderful performers that were, you know, in their PJs, kind of doing little concerts live. And then I asked Kyle to show this one because it's just gives you a little levity, but also some practical information. Do you want to run this? It's 30 seconds, folks, and hopefully it'll run easily.
Hi, I'm Max Brooks. I'm 47 years old. This is my dad, Mel Brooks. Hi, Dad. He's 93. If I get the coronavirus, I'll probably be okay. But if I give it to him, he could give it to Carl Reiner, who could give it to Dick Van Dyke, and before I know it, I've wiped out a whole generation of comedic legends. When it comes to coronavirus, I have to think about who I can infect, and so should you. So practice social distancing. Avoid crowds, wash your hands, keep 6 feet away from people, and if you've got the option to stay home, just stay home.
It's perfect. It's blending comedy, but also with a really powerful message. I think it's great.
I love Mel Brooks saying, "Get out of here, get out of here." Totally adorable. And go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that we definitely want to get our viewers, listeners asking some questions, but I just want to ask you one more thing before we open it up. You know, everyone across the world is in varying states of paranoia, if not panic. And what do you think is the silver lining in this pandemic? You know, could it be a troubling catalyst for?
I think there's something really major. You know, the research, you know, climatologists are doing research, and NASA has been doing satellite imaging around the world. Venice right now, the canals are clean. Lots of areas of China have gone from red zone to clear skies. So there's a lot of things that are happening because we're not flying airplanes, and you know, the human toll, people are at home. And it's really impactful, and it shows that what it's doing is really connecting humans to climate. And maybe we're learning something from this. Maybe we can learn more about getting some of the vehicles off the road, limiting flights, a little bit of that. So that's interesting. The other thing that's really interesting to me is webinars and what's happening at schools. You know, Google Learning, all of these companies have come out and are offering free online learning to students who are stuck at home right now. And that's something that you think, gosh, we have a crisis of young people with college debt, you know, crushing college debt. Is there a way we can better educate a population of underserved populations so they don't have this crushing debt? Can we offer Stanford education online? Maybe it won't be the same kind of Stanford education, but why can't we offer that to people so they get some of the learning and maybe a meeting once a month? So I think it's going to open up, I hope it will open up our thinking to solving some of these really, you know, compelling issues of our time.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you, Tracy. I'm actually going to turn it over to Jessica, who is going to be announcing some of the questions from our Q&A. So Jessica, do you have any questions from the audience right now?
Yes, I do. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Sure do.
Great. Okay. Well, our first question is, what is your best practice for social media posts?
Well, it depends on the platform. I think light, bright, and polite is good. Provide a little data point. Use hashtags that are trending always, because then you really are a part of the conversation. Post regularly. You know, on Twitter, not in crisis times, you're supposed to be posting 2, 3, 4 times a day, depending on what industry you are. Now, maybe even more than that. On LinkedIn, that's a different kind of platform. That's more business oriented. So then you're posting things that are really relevant. Again, hashtags are really good on LinkedIn as well. So Facebook, that's, you know, it depends on overseas. Facebook is really big. In the United States, Facebook is really big. It's not necessarily always a business medium, so it's more social concern, employee groups. So you kind of have to be on every platform right now.
True.
Got it. Okay, and our next question, tell us about the airlines. Could they have done anything to fare better through this?
Yeah, boy. You know, we had Boeing, right? This last year, the double max and, you know, that kind of stuff. So airlines kind of have a little bit, you know, they've got some explaining to do, right? You know, there's been a lot of issues. But I feel really bad for them, and I feel really bad for the employees. There's a lot of good people at the airlines. They're trying, they're struggling, but boy, you know, they're Petri dishes, right?
Yeah.
And you know, coming back, I think that the airlines are being blamed for things that aren't really their fault, which, you know, when they're returning from ports of entry, are the government agencies and airport agencies doing everything that they can do? Should we have people stepping in? I know there's a lot of talk about even deploying the National Guard for certain things, and you would think, you know, having people around to help would be good, but people are just overwhelmed. So
Yeah, they're taking a brunt of the blame, I think, and it's just an unfortunate position, I think, to be.
yeah, I mean, if specifically there's anything, I think, you know, it's good for people to know that you know, the whole comfort animal thing got out of control. They're trying to take control back there, so they're a little bit beleaguered. And now when it comes to people who are sick on an airplane, people need to realize that if a flight attendant comes over to you and says, we want to move you, don't fight, just go back and do what they say. But they're kind of in a war zone too in the front lines. So, you know, the personnel is an issue. I wish I could get, I would like the airlines to give me my my money back for my flights that I've planned this summer, but that's not going to happen.
Okay, next question. What should we expect from our local government representatives?
Yeah, I mean, more communication. I think the more that they talk, the more they reach out. Like Cuomo has been doing a great job, I think, in the state. And I think Gavin Newsom has been doing a good job. Garcetti, I think everybody is trying to do a good job. The airwaves only have so much space, right? But every time I see something pop up on my TV, it's them. I want to say, oh, I better watch this.
Right.
So they're not saying useless, it's not useless information. I really want to hear everything they say because I'm waiting for them to tell me when, okay, shelter in place, you can't leave your house. So I'm relying on them. I'm relying on, I think our local news stations in Los Angeles are killing it. I'm so impressed with them. So they've been doing a wonderful job, even more so than national, frankly, because they're giving me the really relevant news. They're telling us, hey, there's a COVID-19 patient here. They're giving you the maps, you know, really trying to get the information out there. There's nothing light or fluffy about it. So I've been so proud of our local news stations.
Yeah, it's super informative.
Okay, next question. Do you have specific advice for nonprofits whose revenue is mainly based on the tourism industry and whose profits go to children's programs? That's a very specific one, but.
Yeah, it's very specific. Well, it's like any kind of business continuity plan. We're looking for alternative sources of revenue, right? So this is a real business continuity issue. Not my expertise, but it's certainly something that I'm doing with my advisors, and I'm sure you as a nonprofit are doing that with your advisors. Where else are we going to be finding sources of revenue and funding? Are there new opportunities that are being opened up by government agencies, which my understanding there are? I know there's just so much contradicting information on this right now, but we're all trying to, you know, put our arms around it. But I do believe there are some opportunities, everything from, you know, you have events to raise money. Can you have an online event? Can you have a no-show event? So we have to get very creative. And then the question is, we're going to probably not generate as much revenue, perhaps. So then where do we fill in that gap? So it's something to brainstorm. You need to bring your board in. You need to bring in, you know, all of your communications team, and you need to do a good brainstorm about this because there are things you can do. There really are. There's some creative ways of reaching out and looking for how you're going to sustain yourself, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, next question. We are in an election year. What role should political partisanship play in a time of national crisis?
Yeah, none, as we all, I mean, none. I mean, I think that we're getting past that, or at least I hope we are. And I think the candidates are behaving as well as they can. You know, it'll get dicey right in the fall, but yeah, there can't be any partisanship. I think it exists. You know, we now know this last 4 years has taught us, 3 years, almost 4 years has taught us that our nation is very divided. If there is a silver lining, to your point, is that there's a little bit of coming together, you know, in the sense that we have to take care of each other, and we have to obey these rules in order to keep everybody healthy. So, you know, maybe there's a little silver lining there, but there should be no partisanship on this. You know, we just have to say, okay, what can you do? What can you do? Let's get this job done.
Yeah.
Great. Next one is, what would you say to business owners who rely on tourism as their main source of income? For example, with all the cruise ships canceling sailings.
Yeah, and again, it's a business continuity issue. You know, you're going to be pulling on your reserves. The first and foremost thing is you're going to need to be communicating to all of your employees. What are those contracts like? I feel like the cruise lines are, you know, I think we all feel sorry for the cruise lines, frankly. It's been a horrible situation for the people on the ships, but, you know, we can't, I think most of us can see that they've really had issues as well. And they're giving people their money back. They're gonna probably, many of them, go out of business. So what are the businesses on our side gonna do? We're gonna have to find other ways of bringing tourists in. Because the cruise industry is going to have problems for a long time to come. It's estimated. That's what the analysts are saying. So what else? What other ways can you get people to come in? Does it all have to be tourists? Is there anything you can do locally? So start thinking of the alternative to cruise lines.
Okay, and thank you. This will be our final question. Building off your idea of corporate public service, could utilities offer discounted rates based on lower usage with so many businesses closed?
Yeah, you know, you think about that, you know, in my building alone, there's probably 2 small companies like mine. We can maintain our separation in my offices. We have big offices, so we're kind of separated out. We don't congregate for lunch. But apparently there's none, and I think, gosh, if we left, would you shut everything down and could we save energy and, you know, pass it on to the tenants? Ha ha ha. That probably won't happen, but just save energy overall. I would be fine with that. So it's a really good question to motivate people to do that, because energy consumption is also carbon emissions. I mean, you know, it saves on carbon emissions. So there's 2 factors at play. I love that idea. And the utilities ought to give any, you know, they really have to give people who have lost jobs, lost businesses. And I believe the president there's emergency funding coming, and I think the California state government is giving funding. They're going to keep the utilities, or let's pray that they do. That's the right thing to do for people who can't afford them.
Right. Well, Jessica, thank you for moderating the Q&A. And Tracy, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your expertise on this issue and how better to handle corporate communications in a crisis like this. For all of our viewers and listeners, don't forget to tune into our next live stream with Christine Peterson, Director of Trade and Investment for the City of LA, next Wednesday at 11 a.m. And she'll be discussing how the city is working with our global partners to address supply shortages and support local businesses. Make sure to subscribe to the LAWACTH newsletter for more updates on future live streams and events. And as we reach out to you in new, different ways, the tone and spirit of these forums are intended to be inclusive and connect us with others with various points of view. And most of all, to care about the world around us. So stay safe, everyone, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.